Beneath mountains, forests, and oceans, there is another world quietly shaping the earth. A world of darkness, not empty, not lifeless, but ancient, patient, and deeply alive. What happens in places where sunlight never reaches? How does water, drop by drop, carve entire landscapes in silence? And why have humans across cultures and centuries always felt drawn to the hidden spaces beneath their feet? Tonight, we'll explore caves, natural chambers formed slowly by stone, water, and time. We'll move through vast underground halls and narrow passages, follow rivers that flow beneath continents, observe forms of life adapted to eternal darkness, and learn how caves preserve climate records, fossils, and traces of early human history. We'll travel through remarkable cave systems around the world, from deep limestone networks to volcanic tunnels, from crystal-filled chambers to echoing caverns shaped over millions of years. And as this journey unfolds, you may notice something else happening too. Your thoughts begin to slow, your breathing becomes softer, your mind settles into the same quiet rhythm that caves have followed for ages beyond memory. Hello, and welcome to the Sleep and Wonder channel. This is a place where nothing needs your effort. Nothing needs to be memorized. You're simply invited to observe, to wander gently, and to let curiosity and rest exist side by side. If you find this slow, quiet exploration something you genuinely enjoy, I'd be grateful if you liked the video and subscribed. And if you feel like it, share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always a quiet comfort to know. Now find a comfortable position, dim the lights, take a slow breath. And as we begin, imagine yourself standing at the entrance of a cave, safe, unhurried, ready to explore the calm, hidden landscapes beneath the earth. Let's begin. Caves are not places that reveal themselves all at once. They ask for patience. They ask for a different pace of attention, one that mirrors the slow, quiet processes that shaped them in the first place. A cave is, at its simplest, an opening in the earth, a space where solid ground gives way to emptiness. A place where rock, instead of closing in on itself, allows room for air, water, time, and silence. But this simple definition barely scratches the surface. Caves exist on every continent, beneath deserts and rainforests, mountains and plains, cities and oceans. Some are small enough to step through in a single breath. Others stretch for hundreds of kilometers, forming vast underground networks that rival the scale of rivers and mountain ranges above them. They are older than many landscapes we see today, older than forests, older than coastlines, sometimes older than the valleys carved above them, and yet, most of the time, they remain unseen. When we walk across the land, we rarely think about what lies beneath our feet. The ground feels solid, dependable, complete, but in many places that solidity is an illusion. Below the surface, the earth is layered, hollowed, and sculpted by forces that operate quietly and persistently over immense spans of time. Caves are the visible traces of those forces. They are not sudden ruptures or violent breaks. Most caves form slowly, so slowly that their creation cannot be felt, heard, or witnessed in a human lifetime. Drop by drop, grain by grain, molecule by molecule. This is part of their power. From the outside, a cave entrance can appear unremarkable. A dark opening in a hillside, a crack in stone, a low arch hidden behind vegetation. It does not announce the scale of what lies beyond. It does not promise grandeur or depth. And yet, stepping inside changes everything. Light fades, sound softens, the air cools. The world above begins to loosen its hold. Caves alter perception almost immediately. Without the sky overhead, without the horizon as a reference point, the mind begins to recalibrate. Time feels less urgent. Movement becomes more deliberate. Attention narrows, not in a restrictive way, but in a focused, grounded one. This is why caves have drawn humans for tens of thousands of years. Long before they were studied scientifically, caves were encountered experientially, as shelters from weather, as refuges during danger, as places for gathering, ritual, and reflection. The earliest known human art appears deep inside caves, far from daylight, where effort and intention were required simply to reach the walls. Those early humans were not decorating convenient surfaces. They were choosing depth. They were choosing darkness. They were choosing spaces that demanded commitment. Even today, caves evoke a similar response. They inspire curiosity, but also caution, a sense of safety, but also humility. Wonder paired with respect. This dual feeling is not accidental. Caves remind us that the earth is not only something we walk on, it is something we enter, something we move into rather than across, something that can hold us rather than simply support us. Scientifically, caves are known as subterranean voids, large enough for human entry. But this technical description misses their experiential truth. Caves are not empty spaces. They are environments, complete systems shaped by geology, water, chemistry, and time. They have their own climates, their own sounds, their own forms of life. Some remain dry and still, sealed off from surface water. Others are active, carrying underground rivers that continue to carve and reshape their passages even now. Some caves breathe, exchanging air with the surface as temperatures change. Others remain sealed, preserving ancient conditions untouched for millennia. Each cave is a record of what the earth was doing long before we were paying attention. To understand caves, we must first let go of the idea that they are anomalies. They are not mistakes or imperfections in the planet's structure. They are natural outcomes of interaction between rock and water, pressure and chemistry, movement and stillness. In many regions, caves form in limestone, a rock created from the compressed remains of ancient marine life. Coral reefs, shells, microorganisms, once part of warm, shallow seas, become stone over geological time. Later, as rainwater absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and soil, it becomes slightly acidic. When this water seeps into limestone, it begins to dissolve it, slowly widening fractures and creating voids. This process is so gradual that a cave may take hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to form, and still the work continues. What we enter today is not finished. Caves are always becoming. This ongoing formation gives caves a unique character. Unlike mountains which rise or rivers which flow, caves exist in a state of quiet persistence. They do not announce change, they accumulate it. Because of this, caves often feel timeless. Inside, the absence of sunlight means that daily cycles lose relevance. There is no sunrise or sunset underground, no shifting shadows marking the hours. The cave exists in a long, steady present, where change happens slowly enough to feel almost suspended. This quality has a noticeable effect on the human nervous system. Many people report feeling calmer inside caves, more attentive, more present. The external stimuli that usually demand our focus, screens, noise, constant motion, are stripped away. What remains is a simpler sensory field: stone, air, sound, temperature. It is a reduction, not a deprivation. And in that reduction, the mind often finds rest. This is not to say caves are universally comfortable. Some are narrow, dark, or challenging to navigate. But even discomfort serves a purpose here. It encourages awareness, care, intention. Every step matters. Caves do not allow mindless movement. They invite observation. As we begin this journey, it's important to understand that caves are not one single thing. There is no universal cave experience, no single shape, sound, or atmosphere that defines them all. From vast chambers that feel cathedral-like in scale, to tight passages barely wider than the body, caves exist along a wide spectrum of forms and sensations. Some caves echo. Some absorb sound entirely. Some glitter with mineral formations. Others remain rough and raw, shaped by force rather than ornament. Some feel protective. Others feel expansive. But all caves share one essential quality. They are spaces where the earth has opened inward, creating room for something unexpected to exist. That openness is what we follow. In this series, we will move gradually deeper, not only into the earth, but into understanding. We will explore how caves form, how they change, how water and fire shape them, how life adapts to their conditions, and how humans have interacted with them across cultures and time. We will visit frozen caves and volcanic tunnels, sacred chambers and hidden cities, spaces filled with sound and spaces defined by silence. But for now, we remain at the threshold, standing at the entrance, light still behind us, cool air brushing past, the sound of the surface world beginning to fade. This first descent is not about going far. It is about going slowly, because caves reward those who move with care. And as we take the next step forward, the earth begins to reveal what it has been quietly holding all along. Caves are not places that reveal themselves all at once. They ask for patience. They ask for a different pace of attention, one that mirrors the slow, quiet processes that shaped them in the first place. A cave is, at its simplest, an opening in the earth, a space where solid ground gives way to emptiness, a place where rock, instead of closing in on itself, allows room for air, water, time, and silence. But this simple definition barely scratches the surface. Caves exist on every continent, beneath deserts and rainforests, mountains and plains, cities and oceans. Some are small enough to step through in a single breath. Others stretch for hundreds of kilometers, forming vast underground networks that rival the scale of rivers and mountain ranges above them. They are older than many landscapes we see today, older than forests, older than coastlines, sometimes older than the valleys carved above them. And yet most of the time they remain unseen. When we walk across the land, we rarely think about what lies beneath our feet. The ground feels solid, dependable, complete. But in many places that solidity is an illusion. Below the surface, the earth is layered, hollowed, and sculpted by forces that operate quietly and persistently over immense spans of time. Caves are the visible traces of those forces. They are not sudden ruptures or violent breaks. Most caves form slowly, so slowly that their creation cannot be felt, heard, or witnessed in a human lifetime. Drop by drop, grain by grain, molecule by molecule. This is part of their power. From the outside, a cave entrance can appear unremarkable, a dark opening in a hillside, a crack in stone, a low arch hidden behind vegetation. It does not announce the scale of what lies beyond. It does not promise grandeur or depth. And yet stepping inside changes everything. Light fades, sound softens, the air cools, the world above begins to loosen its hold. Caves alter perception almost immediately. Without the sky overhead, without the horizon as a reference point, the mind begins to recalibrate. Time feels less urgent, movement becomes more deliberate. Attention narrows, not in a restrictive way, but in a focused, grounded one. This is why caves have drawn humans for tens of thousands of years. Long before they were studied scientifically, caves were encountered experientially, as shelters from weather, as refuges during danger, as places for gathering, ritual, and reflection. The earliest known human art appears deep inside caves, far from daylight, where effort and intention were required simply to reach the walls. Those early humans were not decorating convenient surfaces. They were choosing depth. They were choosing darkness. They were choosing spaces that demanded commitment. Even today, caves evoke a similar response. They inspire curiosity, but also caution, a sense of safety, but also humility, wonder, paired with respect. This dual feeling is not accidental. Caves remind us that the earth is not only something we walk on, it is something we enter, something we move into rather than across, something that can hold us rather than simply support us. Scientifically, caves are known as subterranean voids, large enough for human entry. But this technical description misses their experiential truth. Caves are not empty spaces. They are environments, complete systems shaped by geology, water, chemistry, and time. They have their own climates, their own sounds, their own forms of life. Some remain dry and still, sealed off from surface water. Others are active, carrying underground rivers that continue to carve and reshape their passages even now. Some caves breathe, exchanging air with the surface as temperatures change. Others remain sealed, preserving ancient conditions untouched for millennia. Each cave is a record of what the earth was doing long before we were paying attention. To understand caves, we must first let go of the idea that they are anomalies. They are not mistakes or imperfections in the planet's structure. They are natural outcomes of interaction between rock and water, pressure and chemistry, movement and stillness. In many regions, caves form in limestone, a rock created from the compressed remains of ancient marine life. Coral reefs, shells, microorganisms, once part of warm, shallow seas, become stone over geological time. Later, as rainwater absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and soil, it becomes slightly acidic. When this water seeps into limestone, it begins to dissolve it, slowly widening fractures and creating voids. This process is so gradual that a cave may take hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to form, and still the work continues. What we enter today is not finished. Caves are always becoming. This ongoing formation gives caves a unique character. Unlike mountains which rise or rivers which flow, caves exist in a state of quiet persistence. They do not announce change. They accumulate it. Because of this, caves often feel timeless. Inside, the absence of sunlight means that daily cycles lose relevance. There is no sunrise or sunset underground, no shifting shadows marking the hours. The cave exists in a long, steady present, where change happens slowly enough to feel almost suspended. This quality has a noticeable effect on the human nervous system. Many people report feeling calmer inside caves, more attentive, more present. The external stimuli that usually demand our focus, screens, noise, constant motion, are stripped away. What remains is a simpler sensory field: stone, air, sound, temperature. It is a reduction, not a deprivation. And in that reduction, the mind often finds rest. This is not to say caves are universally comfortable. Some are narrow, dark, or challenging to navigate. But even discomfort serves a purpose here. It encourages awareness, care, intention. Every step matters. Caves do not allow mindless movement. They invite observation. As we begin this journey, it's important to understand that caves are not one single thing. There is no universal cave experience, no single shape, sound, or atmosphere that defines them all. From vast chambers that feel cathedral-like in scale, to tight passages barely wider than the body, caves exist along a wide spectrum of forms and sensations. Some caves echo. Some absorb sound entirely. Some glitter with mineral formations. Others remain rough and raw, shaped by force rather than ornament. Some feel protective. Others feel expansive. But all caves share one essential quality. They are spaces where the earth has opened inward, creating room for something unexpected to exist. That openness is what we follow. In this series, we will move gradually deeper, not only into the earth, but into understanding. We will explore how caves form, how they change, how water and fire shape them, how life adapts to their conditions, and how humans have interacted with them across cultures and time. We will visit frozen caves and volcanic tunnels, sacred chambers and hidden cities, spaces filled with sound and spaces defined by silence. But for now, we remain at the threshold. Standing at the entrance, light still behind us, cool air brushing past, the sound of the surface world beginning to fade. This first descent is not about going far. It is about going slowly, because caves reward those who move with care. And as we take the next step forward, the earth begins to reveal what it has been quietly holding all along. When we speak of caves, it is tempting to imagine sudden events, a collapse, a fracture, a dramatic opening in solid ground. But the earth rarely works that way. Most caves are not the result of force, but of patience. They are shaped by processes so slow and consistent that for a long time, humans did not even recognize them as processes at all. Water dripping through stone, air moving through cracks, chemical reactions happening quietly, invisibly, beneath our awareness. To understand how the earth opens itself into caves, we must first change how we think about rock. Rock feels permanent, immutable, unchanging. Yet on geological timescales, rock is surprisingly responsive. It bends, it dissolves, it flows, not quickly, not visibly, but inevitably. The most common caves on Earth are formed through a process known as chemical weathering, especially in rocks like limestone, dolomite, and gypsum. These rocks share one important quality. They can be dissolved by slightly acidic water, and water almost everywhere on Earth is never completely neutral. As rain falls through the atmosphere, it absorbs carbon dioxide, forming a weak carbonic acid. When that rainwater passes through soil, it absorbs even more carbon dioxide from decaying organic matter. By the time it reaches the ground, it carries just enough acidity to begin interacting with certain types of rock, not aggressively, not violently, but persistently. A drop of water finds a microscopic crack in limestone. It lingers. It reacts. A minuscule amount of rock dissolves. The crack widens by an amount too small to measure easily. Then the drop moves on. Another drop follows, and another, and another. Over thousands of years, cracks become channels. Over hundreds of thousands, channels become passages. Over millions, passages become chambers. This is how the earth opens, not by breaking apart, but by slowly making space. This process is known as karst formation, and it is responsible for some of the most extensive cave systems on the planet. Entire landscapes can be shaped by it, resulting in sinkholes, disappearing rivers, underground lakes, and vast cave networks hidden beneath seemingly ordinary terrain. From above, these regions may look peaceful and unremarkable. Rolling hills, forests, fields, cities. Below, they are anything but simple. Water moves underground in karst landscapes in ways that challenge intuition. Rivers vanish into the ground, traveling unseen for kilometers before re-emerging elsewhere. Rainwater does not always flow across the surface. Instead, it drains downward, feeding hidden systems that are constantly reshaping themselves. This means that caves are not isolated spaces. They are part of larger hydrological systems, underground circulations that connect surface water, groundwater, and geological layers into a single dynamic whole. In some caves, you can hear this movement, a distant drip echoing through darkness, a faint, continuous flow behind stone walls, the low murmur of an underground river moving through unseen corridors. These sounds are reminders that the cave is not static. Even when it appears still, it is active. Not all caves form through dissolution alone. Some are carved by physical erosion, especially where water flows rapidly through rock that is already fractured. Over time, the mechanical force of moving water scours and smooths passages, rounding walls and shaping tunnels that feel distinctly fluid in origin. Other caves are born from fire rather than water. In volcanic regions, lava tubes form when the surface of flowing lava cools and solidifies, while molten rock beneath continues to move. When the eruption ends and the lava drains away, it leaves behind long, hollow tunnels, caves formed not by removal but by flow. These caves feel different. Their walls are often smooth and rippled, shaped by movement frozen in time. They may branch and curve, following the paths lava once took as it traveled across the landscape. Still others are created by tectonic activity. Shifting plates fracture rock layers, opening voids that later expand through erosion or collapse. In some regions, sea caves form where waves exploit weaknesses in coastal rock, hollowing out chambers that breathe with the tides. Despite their differences, all caves share a fundamental principle. They exist where the earth has allowed space to form. This allowance is not random. Rock type matters, water availability matters, time matters, and above all, balance matters. Too much water too quickly can collapse a cave before it fully forms. Too little water and dissolution slows to near stillness. Stable conditions allow caves to grow gradually, creating intricate networks that endure for immense spans of time. Because caves develop underground, they are often protected from surface erosion. This allows them to preserve evidence of past climates, environments, and geological conditions long after the surface has changed. Layers of sediment, mineral deposits, and formations inside caves act as quiet archives. By studying them, scientists can reconstruct ancient rainfall patterns, temperature shifts, even changes in vegetation that occurred tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago. In this way, caves are not only spaces, they are records. They hold memories the surface has forgotten. As caves grow, they also begin to influence the land above them. Roofs thin, ground weakens, sinkholes form, valleys deepen. What happens underground eventually reshapes what we see on the surface. This slow dialogue between hidden and visible worlds is one of the most fascinating aspects of cave formation. The earth opens itself gradually, and in doing so, it reshapes itself entirely. For those who enter caves, this knowledge adds another layer of depth to the experience. Every wall is the result of countless interactions. Every curve tells a story of movement, chemistry, and time. Nothing here is accidental. Even the smallest formations, a tiny notch in the wall, a shallow groove worn smooth by water, are evidence of processes that never stopped working. This awareness changes how we move through caves. Steps become lighter. Observation becomes more attentive. Silence feels intentional because caves were not made for us. They were made by the earth for itself, and yet we are allowed to enter. As we continue deeper, the spaces around us will begin to change more noticeably. Walls will narrow or widen, ceilings will rise, water will leave clearer traces of its passage. Mineral formations will begin to appear, signs that the cave is no longer just opening, but also decorating itself. The earth does not only create emptiness, it shapes beauty within it. And that beauty, formed drop by drop over unimaginable spans of time, is where our journey leads next. If caves have a language, it is spoken slowly. It is not a language of sudden events or loud gestures. It is a language made of repetition, of pressure so gentle it goes unnoticed, of time working not in moments, but in accumulations. At the heart of nearly every cave story, there is water. Not rushing water, not dramatic floods or crashing waves, but water that moves patiently, persistently, almost politely through stone. Water is one of the most underestimated forces on Earth. It appears soft, yielding, easy to overlook. Yet, over long spans of time, it reshapes entire landscapes, rearranges continents and opens spaces where none existed before. In caves, water becomes both architect and storyteller. The relationship between water and stone begins at the surface. Rain falls, snow melts, fog condenses. Gravity draws moisture downward, guiding it through soil, roots, and fractured rock. Each layer alters the water slightly, adding minerals, gases, and subtle chemical properties that determine how it will interact with what comes next. By the time water reaches bedrock, it is no longer just water. It is a solution, a carrier of carbon dioxide, a quiet agent of transformation. When this water encounters limestone, dolomite, or gypsum, it begins a slow conversation with the stone. Molecules exchange places. Calcium carbonate dissolves imperceptibly at first. A wall that seems solid is, at a microscopic level, constantly rearranging itself. This is not erosion in the way we usually imagine it. There is no scraping, no grinding. Instead, there is removal through agreement, stone letting go of parts of itself because chemistry allows it. And because this process happens everywhere water goes, caves tend to grow along paths water already favors. Joints, bedding planes, fractures. These natural weaknesses become invitations. Water follows them, stone yields to them, time amplifies them. As thousands of years pass, water does not simply widen passages, it organizes them. Small channels merge into larger conduits. Vertical shafts connect surface and depth. Horizontal tunnels align with ancient water tables that once sat higher or lower than they do today. In this way, caves record not just the presence of water, but its history. A dry passage may have once been a riverbed. A high tunnel may mark an ancient water level long since lowered. A smooth wall may remember a flow that no longer exists. Water leaves signatures behind, scalloped rock patterns, polished surfaces, rounded corners. These features allow geologists to read caves almost like maps of motion frozen in time. Some caves tell stories of calm persistence. Others speak of change. Climate shifts alter rainfall patterns. Ice ages lock water into glaciers. Warmer periods release it again. Each change adjusts how much water enters the ground, how fast it moves, how deeply it cuts. As a result, caves are rarely finished. They are always becoming. In some regions, caves grow downward as rivers carve deeper valleys on the surface. In others, they grow outward, expanding laterally as water spreads through rock layers. Some caves collapse, sealing passages and creating new entrances. Others remain stable for millions of years, protected by thick ceilings and steady conditions. Time is the quiet partner in all of this. Water can only work as long as time allows. A single drop may dissolve an immeasurable amount of stone, but multiplied by countless drops, flowing continuously for millennia, the effect becomes monumental. Chambers the size of cathedrals are created without urgency, without intention, without awareness. This is a form of creation that does not rush, and there is something deeply calming in that. Inside caves, the presence of time feels different. There is no sunrise or sunset, no seasons marked by leaves or temperature shifts. Instead, time reveals itself through accumulation, layers of mineral deposits, slow-growing formations, sediments laid down grain by grain. In these spaces, water becomes a sculptor as well as an excavator. As it drips from ceilings, it carries dissolved minerals with it. When the drop falls and releases carbon dioxide into the cave air, the minerals precipitate, leaving behind tiny crystals. Over long periods, these deposits grow into stalactites, stalagmites, columns, flowstones, structures that feel ornamental, deliberate, almost artistic. Yet they are entirely natural, entirely unplanned, entirely inevitable. Each formation grows at its own pace, influenced by drip rate, temperature, air circulation, and chemistry. Some advance a few millimeters per century, others grow even more slowly. To stand beside them is to stand beside time made visible. Water also brings life into caves. It carries organic material, nutrients, and microorganisms from the surface. These support specialized ecosystems adapted to darkness, scarcity, and stability. In some caves, entire food webs exist independent of sunlight, relying instead on chemical energy or material washed in from above. Even in the deepest, most silent chambers, water is rarely absent. It may be present only as humidity, as condensation on stone, as a slow, invisible movement through pores. But its influence remains. This constant presence of water shapes not just the cave itself, but the experience of being inside one. Sound behaves differently. Light reflects softly. Air feels cool and weighted, carrying the memory of moisture even where liquid water is no longer visible. There is a sense of enclosure that does not feel oppressive, but protective, as if the cave has learned over time how to hold space gently. For humans, entering this environment often triggers a subtle shift in awareness. Thoughts slow, movements become measured, attention sharpens without effort. Perhaps this is because caves operate on a timescale that dwarfs our own. In the presence of stone shaped over millions of years, urgency loses relevance. Concerns that depend on speed and immediacy feel distant, almost inappropriate. Water teaches stone patience. Stone teaches water form. Time teaches both endurance. Together, they create spaces that invite reflection without demanding it. As we move forward in our exploration, the influence of water will become even more visible, not only in how caves form, but in how they decorate themselves, preserve their histories, and quietly sustain life in darkness. What begins as a simple interaction between liquid and rock becomes a layered narrative, written slowly but clearly for those who know how to look. And soon we will begin to read that narrative more closely, not in the shapes of passages, but in the delicate structures that grow within them, marking time drop by drop. When people imagine caves, They often picture emptiness, a hollow space, a dark opening, an absence carved into the earth. But once inside, it becomes clear that caves are not defined by emptiness at all. They are defined by structure. Caves are not voids, they are interiors. They are spaces shaped, organized, and furnished by processes so consistent that they resemble architecture. Not the architecture of intention, but the architecture of inevitability. Every cave tells its story through form. Long corridors stretch forward like quiet hallways. Vaulted chambers rise upward, their ceilings dissolving into darkness. Narrow passages tighten the body's awareness, while wide rooms invite stillness and pause. These shapes are not random. They follow rules, Gassier's geological rules, shaped by the materials involved and the forces that act upon them. One of the most common features inside caves is the stalactite. Hanging from ceilings like stone icicles, stalactites grow where mineral-rich water drips slowly downward. Each drop leaves behind a microscopic ring of calcite. Over centuries, these rings accumulate, forming delicate, tapering structures that point toward the floor. Opposite them rise stalagmites, built from the same drops once they fall and splash below. Over time, ceiling and floor may meet, forming columns, pillars that seem to hold the cave together, even though the cave existed long before them. These formations are often called speleothems, a term that simply means cave deposits. But the simplicity of the word hides their complexity. Flowstones spread like frozen waterfalls across walls and floors. Draperies ripple downward in thin sheets, resembling fabric caught mid-motion. Helictites twist and curl in improbable directions, defying gravity as mineral-rich water creeps along microscopic paths. Each form reflects a balance between gravity, chemistry, airflow, and time. Nothing grows faster than conditions allow. Nothing grows without permission from the environment. Because of this, caves develop a kind of internal order. Certain areas remain bare and smooth, shaped primarily by flowing water. Others become richly decorated, where dripping dominates and air circulation allows minerals to settle. Some chambers feel restrained and minimal. Others feel ornate and ceremonial. This variation creates a rhythm as one moves through a cave. Contraction and expansion, simplicity and complexity, silence and echo. From a geological perspective, these features serve as records. Speleothems grow in layers, much like tree rings. Each layer reflects the conditions present at the time it formed: rainfall patterns, vegetation on the surface, temperature fluctuations, even atmospheric composition. In this way, caves function as archives. Scientists can analyze these mineral layers to reconstruct past climates with remarkable precision. Droughts, wet periods, cold phases, and warm intervals all leave subtle traces behind. What appears decorative is, in fact, deeply informative. Yet caves do not present this information aggressively. They do not announce it. They simply hold it, patiently, waiting for attention. This quiet containment is part of what makes caves feel different from other landscapes. Above ground, change is visible and frequent. Leaves fall, rivers flood, shadows move. In caves, change happens below the threshold of immediate perception. A stalactite may grow less than a millimeter in a human lifetime. A flowstone may require thousands of years to noticeably thicken. Standing among these formations creates a subtle shift in perspective. Time stretches, urgency dissolves. The mind adjusts to a slower rhythm. The architecture of caves also influences sound. Hard stone surfaces reflect noise, while irregular shapes scatter it. In large chambers, even a whisper can travel far, while in narrow passages, sound feels close and contained. This acoustic quality reinforces awareness. People tend to lower their voices instinctively, as if the space itself encourages gentleness. Light behaves differently too. In caves, light does not flood. It arrives carefully in beams and halos, revealing textures while leaving much unseen. Shadows deepen contours. Reflections soften edges. This selective illumination gives cave interiors a sense of depth and mystery without threat. The darkness is not aggressive. It is neutral. It simply exists. Human presence inside caves often feels smaller than usual, not because the caves diminish us, but because they expand the context around us. The scale of time and formation reframes perception. We become observers rather than actors, and that role feels surprisingly comfortable. Caves also show us how structure can emerge without planning, without blueprints, without oversight. Water follows physics, minerals follow chemistry, time follows continuity. From these simple rules, complexity emerges. This mirrors patterns found elsewhere in nature: coral reefs, crystal lattices, snowflakes, systems where repetition produces beauty without intention. Caves are part of that family. Their architecture reminds us that order does not require control. Stability does not require speed. Strength does not require force. As we move deeper into our exploration, we will begin to see how this architecture does more than decorate underground spaces. It shapes ecosystems, preserves traces of life long past, and creates environments where both humans and other species have sought shelter, meaning, and quiet continuity. The stone structures around us are not merely passive. They actively influence how caves function as habitats, archives, and sanctuaries. And soon, we will look more closely at those who live within these spaces, creatures whose lives are shaped entirely by darkness, stability, and the slow architecture of stone. At first glance, caves seem empty of life. There is no sunlight, no green plants, no obvious movement. For a long time, humans assumed that caves were sterile spaces, geological structures without ecosystems, places where life could not persist. This assumption turned out to be deeply incorrect. Caves host forms of life that are not only present, but exquisitely adapted to conditions that would feel extreme to most surface organisms. Life underground does not depend on light. It depends on stability, chemistry, and time. The cave environment is remarkably constant. Temperatures change very little throughout the year. Humidity remains high and steady. Wind is minimal or absent. Once a cave forms and stabilizes, it becomes one of the most predictable habitats on Earth. For certain organisms, this predictability is ideal. Life in caves is often categorized into three broad groups based on how closely species are tied to the underground world. The first group is troglodytes. These are animals that use caves regularly but cannot live in them permanently. They depend on the surface for food or other resources, yet return to caves for shelter. Bats are the most familiar example. Caves provide bats with protection from predators, stable temperatures for hibernation, and safe places to raise their young. Every evening they emerge into the open air to feed, then return before dawn. Bears in colder regions have also used caves as seasonal refuges. So have birds, rodents, and even humans at various points in history. For troglodytes, caves are not homes in the strict sense. They are anchors of safety. The second group is troglophiles. These organisms can live both inside and outside caves. They thrive in damp, dark environments, but are not fully dependent on them. Certain insects, spiders, amphibians, and crustaceans fall into this category. They often inhabit cave entrances, twilight zones, and humid underground corridors, where organic material still enters from the surface. Troglophiles are flexible. They move between worlds. The third group is the most specialized and perhaps the most fascinating, troglodytes. Troglodytes are true cave dwellers. They spend their entire lives underground and cannot survive outside cave environments. Over evolutionary time, these species have undergone remarkable transformations. Eyes, no longer useful in complete darkness, are often reduced or lost entirely. Pigmentation fades, leaving bodies pale or translucent. Sensory structures, antennae, tactile hairs, chemical receptors, become more refined. Energy efficiency becomes essential. Movements slow. Metabolisms adapt to scarcity. Food in caves is limited. Without photosynthesis, ecosystems rely on material brought in from outside. Fallen leaves washed through cracks, animal droppings, carcasses, or organic particles carried by water. Some caves also support life through chemosynthesis, where bacteria derive energy from chemical reactions involving sulfur, methane, or other compounds, a process similar to what occurs at deep-sea hydrothermal vents. In these systems, bacteria form the base of the food web. Small invertebrates feed on microbial films. Larger organisms feed on them. Everything is connected through slow, efficient energy transfer. Nothing is wasted. Because resources are scarce, cave ecosystems are finely balanced. A small disruption, a change in airflow, water chemistry, or human intrusion can have long-lasting effects. This sensitivity has made caves important indicators of environmental health. Changes at the surface often appear underground long before they are noticed elsewhere. Life in caves teaches a quiet lesson about adaptation. Instead of expansion, cave species specialize. Instead of speed, they rely on precision. Instead of abundance, they master conservation. This creates organisms that feel almost otherworldly. Blind fish navigate by sensing pressure changes in water. Transparent crustaceans glide slowly through underground streams. Insects move carefully, guided by touch and chemical signals rather than sight. Their existence challenges common assumptions about what life needs. Light is optional. Stability is essential. Time is generous. From a human perspective, these ecosystems invite a shift in attention. We are accustomed to landscapes that change visibly and rapidly. Cave life operates on scales that require patience to notice. A population may persist unchanged for thousands of years. Evolution proceeds but quietly. When humans enter caves, we often bring surface habits with us: noise, light, movement. Over time, explorers learned that minimizing disturbance was not just respectful, but necessary to preserve these systems. Modern cave science emphasizes conservation. Many cave species exist nowhere else on Earth. Their entire range may be confined to a single cavern or underground network. If that habitat is damaged, the species disappears. Yet despite their fragility, cave organisms demonstrate resilience in another sense. They endure conditions that would be intolerable elsewhere. They persist through ice ages, droughts, and surface upheavals, sheltered by stone. This paradox, fragility paired with endurance, defines much of cave life. It also shapes how humans experience these spaces. Knowing that life thrives here, unseen and ongoing, adds a layer of quiet presence to the darkness. The cave no longer feels empty. It feels inhabited, but discreetly. There is movement beyond vision, processes unfolding without spectacle. This awareness often softens the human response to darkness. Fear gives way to curiosity. Stillness becomes easier to accept. As we continue deeper, we will see that caves are not only homes to living species, but also to traces of life long gone, preserved with remarkable clarity by the same stable conditions that support life today. Bones, footprints, and even ancient markings remain, protected by darkness and time. And it is there, in that intersection of biology and memory, that caves begin to reveal another role as guardians of the deep past. Caves do not only shelter life, they preserve time. While the surface of the earth is constantly reshaped by wind, rain, sunlight, vegetation, and human activity, caves exist in a different temporal rhythm. Underground, change happens slowly, very slowly. This is why caves function as some of the most reliable natural archives on the planet. Inside them, traces of past climates, ecosystems, animals, and humans remain protected, sometimes for tens or hundreds of thousands of years. The same conditions that favor stability for cave life, constant temperature, high humidity, limited airflow, also favor preservation. In many caves, nothing truly disappears, it simply waits. One of the most important timekeepers found underground is the speleothem. Speleothems include stalactites, stalagmites, columns, flowstones, and curtains, mineral formations created by dripping or flowing water. Each drop leaves behind a microscopic layer of calcite. Over centuries and millennia, these layers accumulate. Like tree rings, speleothems record environmental conditions. The chemistry of each layer reflects the temperature, rainfall, vegetation cover, and atmospheric composition of the time when it formed. By analyzing these layers, scientists can reconstruct ancient climates with remarkable precision. Some speleothems contain uninterrupted records spanning hundreds of thousands of years, far longer than any human-written archive. These formations quietly document ice ages, warm periods, droughts, and shifts in global circulation patterns. They show when rains were frequent and when landscapes dried. They reveal how sensitive Earth systems are to subtle changes. In this way, caves become libraries written in stone, Beyond minerals, caves also preserve biological remains. Bones are among the most common discoveries. Animals that fell into sinkholes, sought shelter, or were carried by water often remained undisturbed after death. In dry or sealed chambers, bones can remain intact for extraordinary lengths of time. Some caves have yielded complete skeletons of extinct species: cave bears, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, ancient horses. In certain regions, caves are the primary source of information about Ice Age fauna. Even delicate materials can survive underground. In dry caves, ancient plant fibers, wooden tools, woven baskets, and textiles have been preserved long after similar objects decayed on the surface. In some cases, human footprints remain visible in soft sediment, hardened over time. These impressions capture moments that feel almost immediate: a step taken, a pause, a turn. Caves also preserve water history. Sediments deposited by underground rivers reveal patterns of flooding and erosion. Changes in grain size, layering, and composition indicate shifts in water flow and climate. In coastal caves, ancient shorelines can be identified, marking past sea levels. Through these clues, scientists reconstruct how oceans expanded and contracted, how glaciers melted, and how landscapes responded. Perhaps most evocative of all are caves that preserve human presence. Long before permanent settlements, caves offered shelter, protection, and reliable microclimates. Humans return to them repeatedly, leaving behind traces that remain astonishingly clear. Charcoal from ancient fires still rests on cave floors. Stone tools lie where they were dropped. Handprints and paintings decorate walls protected from sunlight and weather. Some cave art dates back more than 40,000 years. These images, animals, symbols, abstract patterns, speak across immense spans of time. They are not just decorations, they are records of perception, belief, and attention. Caves, in this sense, are not passive containers of history. They actively select what is preserved. Surface environments erase, caves remember. This difference shapes how we relate to them. When humans enter a cave known to contain ancient remains, movement slows naturally. Voices drop. Light is used carefully. There is an unspoken awareness that one is moving through layered time, not just space. Modern cave science treats these sites with exceptional care. Many caves are now protected, monitored, and entered only by trained researchers. A single, careless touch can damage formations that took thousands of years to grow. Even the oils from human skin can halt mineral deposition. This fragility contrasts with the impression of permanence that caves often give. Stone feels eternal, yet the records it holds are delicate. This balance between endurance and vulnerability defines caves as archives. They endure because they are sheltered. They are vulnerable because they are precise. From a broader perspective, caves help humanity understand long-term change. They extend our sense of time beyond generations, civilizations, and even species. They remind us that the climate we experience today is part of a much longer story, that landscapes we consider stable have shifted many times before, that life adapts, retreats, returns, and transforms. For the listener, this realization often brings calm rather than unease. The cave does not rush, time does not collapse. Processes unfold patiently. Standing in a cave that holds records older than memory, the present moment feels smaller and often lighter. Worries lose urgency. Attention widens. This is one reason caves have been associated with reflection, initiation, and insight across cultures. They naturally place human experience within a larger temporal frame. As we move forward, we will see that caves are not only archives of the distant past, but also active systems that continue to shape water, landscapes, and even the surface world above them. The records they hold are still being written, drop by drop, grain by grain. And understanding that process brings us closer to how caves connect the hidden and the visible parts of Earth. Every cave begins with water, not suddenly, not dramatically, but patiently, persistently, almost without notice. Long before a cave becomes a space that can be entered, explored, or named, water is already at work beneath the surface. Moving slowly through tiny fractures in rock, it follows paths defined by gravity, chemistry, and time. What appears solid from above is underground, quietly negotiable. Rainwater absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and soil, becoming slightly acidic. This mild acidity is enough to dissolve certain types of rock, especially limestone, dolomite, and gypsum. Drop by drop, molecule by molecule, water reshapes the underground world. This is how most caves are born. The process is called karstification, and it creates some of the most extensive cave systems on Earth. What begins as microscopic channels expands into conduits, tunnels, chambers, and vast networks that can stretch for hundreds of kilometers. But caves are not isolated voids. They are part of a larger, hidden architecture, one that directly influences the surface above. In many landscapes, the underground drainage system carved by caves controls where rivers flow, where springs emerge, and how water moves across entire regions. Some surface rivers disappear into sinkholes, travel underground for kilometers, and re-emerge far away. From above, this behavior can seem mysterious. From below, it is simply continuity. Caves act as subterranean highways for water. They collect rainfall, channel groundwater, store it temporarily, and release it slowly. In doing so, they regulate floods, sustain rivers during dry periods, and support ecosystems far beyond their entrances. In karst regions, caves often hold the primary freshwater reserves. This makes them critically important and extremely sensitive. Pollution introduced at the surface can travel quickly through cave systems, bypassing natural filtration layers found in other geological settings. What enters the ground may reappear unchanged at a spring many kilometers away. For this reason, caves connect human activity directly to water quality. Yet their influence is not only practical, it is also structural. As caves grow, they weaken the rock layers above them. Over time, this can lead to collapses, forming sinkholes, valleys, and dramatic surface features. Entire landscapes owe their shape to underground voids that are never seen. In some regions, rolling hills, steep depressions, and circular lakes mark the presence of extensive cave systems below. The land in these places is hollowed gently from within. Water also defines the internal character of caves. Some caves are dry, fossilized remnants of ancient water flow. Others are active, with rivers still carving new passages. In flooded caves, water fills every chamber, creating silent, submerged worlds navigable only by divers. Each type represents a different moment in a cave's life cycle. Active caves are dynamic. Sediments shift, channels widen, floods reshape floors and walls. Fossil caves, by contrast, are quieter. Their water has moved elsewhere, leaving behind stillness and mineral growth. This transition from movement to calm is gradual. A cave may remain active for hundreds of thousands of years before becoming dry. During that time, it records the rhythm of water, seasonal changes, extreme events, and long-term climate trends. Water leaves signatures everywhere. Ripple marks in sediment floors indicate flow direction. Scalloped patterns on walls reveal the speed and turbulence of ancient streams. Polished surfaces show where gravel once rolled endlessly. Even silence carries information. In dry caves, the absence of water tells a story of lowered water tables, uplifted landscapes, or diverted rivers. The cave did not stop forming because time ended. It stopped because conditions changed. From the listener's perspective, this relationship between water and stone often evokes a sense of trust. Water does not force its way. It listens to gravity. It follows opportunity. Caves, in turn, respond without resistance. This interaction creates an underground environment that feels ordered, even when complex. There is logic in the curves of passages, intention in the branching of tunnels. Nothing is random. This is why caves are often described as natural systems rather than accidents. Their geometry reflects physics, chemistry, and patience working together over immense timescales. Beyond geology, water in caves shapes life. Many cave organisms depend on water for transport of nutrients. Organic material washed in from the surface feeds entire subterranean food webs. In aquatic caves, blind fish, crustaceans, and microorganisms thrive in complete darkness, guided by chemical signals rather than sight. These ecosystems are fragile but remarkably stable. The steady presence of water buffers temperature changes, reduces seasonal extremes, and provides continuity. Life adapts not to abundance, but to reliability. For humans, caves shaped by water often feel calming for similar reasons. The sound of dripping echoes softly. Underground rivers murmur steadily. Even still, water reflects light in a way that feels slower, heavier, more deliberate. Time seems to thicken around water underground. This perception has influenced how caves are used culturally. Many ancient rituals, myths, and spiritual practices associate caves with sources, origins, and transitions. Water flowing from caves was seen as pure, powerful, and meaningful. Springs emerging from cave mouths often became sacred sites. Even today, standing near a cave spring feels different from standing beside a surface stream. The water has traveled unseen, filtered through stone, carrying the weight of the earth above it. As we move forward, it becomes clear that caves are not merely underground spaces. They are the unseen framework that supports landscapes, ecosystems, and human experience. They shape rivers without being visible. They influence valleys without being mapped. They hold water without displaying it. Understanding caves means learning to read what cannot be seen directly, and that perspective prepares us to explore how caves, despite their isolation, are deeply connected to the living world above. Through air, life, and the subtle exchange between surface and depth. Light is the first thing we lose when entering a cave, not all at once, but gradually. At the entrance, daylight still reaches the stone. Shadows are soft, familiar. The outside world feels close enough to return to without thought. Birds may still be heard. Wind may still touch the skin. But with each step inward, light thins. It becomes directional, fragile, intentional. In caves, light does not exist by default. It must be brought, reflected, or discovered in rare natural openings. This simple fact reshapes the entire experience of space. Darkness in caves is not merely the absence of light. It is a condition, stable, ancient, and complete. Beyond the twilight zone near the entrance, caves enter what scientists call aphotic environments, spaces where sunlight has not reached for thousands, sometimes millions of years. This darkness is absolute. If all artificial light is turned off, vision disappears entirely, not dim vision, not shadowy outlines, nothing. The brain receives no visual information at all. This level of darkness is rare on the surface of the Earth. Even on moonless nights, starlight provides reference. In caves, there is none. And yet, this darkness is not inherently frightening. For many, it becomes deeply calming. The reason lies in how the human nervous system responds to reduced sensory input. Vision is our dominant sense. When it is removed, the brain reallocates attention. Hearing becomes more sensitive. Touch becomes more precise. Breathing often slows without conscious effort. Time perception shifts. Minutes feel longer but not heavier. Thoughts stretch and soften. There is less urgency to interpret or react. In this way, caves create a unique psychological state, one where awareness is present but pressure is absent. Light, when introduced into this darkness, takes on new meaning. A single beam from a headlamp becomes a focal point. It does not flood the environment, it reveals it selectively. Only what is illuminated exists in the moment. This selective visibility encourages presence. You are not distracted by distant objects or wide horizons. You are with what is immediately before you, a curve of rock, a glistening mineral surface, a drop of water trembling at the tip of a stalactite. In large chambers, light behaves differently. Beams travel farther, but lose intensity. Shadows stretch and overlap. The edges of space dissolve into darkness, creating the impression that the chamber continues far beyond what can be seen. This ambiguity invites imagination, but does not demand it. The cave does not ask to be understood fully. It allows partial knowing. Historically, humans have associated darkness with danger, predators, uncertainty, loss of control. But cave darkness lacks these signals. There is no wind to suggest movement, no sudden changes in temperature, no unpredictable sounds. The environment is remarkably stable. This stability counteracts fear. Once the initial unfamiliarity fades, many people report a sense of comfort in cave darkness. The world feels contained, protected, removed from external demands. This may explain why caves have long been associated with reflection, ritual, and retreat across cultures. In prehistoric times, caves were places of art, burial, and storytelling. The darkness was not avoided. It was sought. Torchlight flickering on cave walls would have created moving shadows, animating rock formations and paintings alike. The environment itself became part of the experience. Even today, modern cave explorers describe moments when they turn off their lights intentionally, choosing to sit in complete darkness for extended periods. In these moments, the absence of vision does not feel like loss. It feels like rest. The mind no longer scans. The eyes no longer search. There is nothing to process visually, and so the brain quiets its constant commentary. This effect is measurable. Studies on sensory deprivation show that controlled reduction of stimuli can lower stress levels, slow heart rate, and induce meditative brainwave patterns. Caves offer this naturally. Sound becomes more meaningful in the dark. Drips echo softly. Distant water murmurs like slow breathing. Footsteps sound deliberate, grounding the body in space. Each sound has a clear source and a clear end. There is no noise pollution underground. Silence here is not empty. It is structured. Light also reveals time in caves in subtle ways. Mineral surfaces reflect differently depending on moisture. Some glisten briefly, then fade as water evaporates. Others remain matte, absorbing light rather than returning it. These textures guide the eye gently, encouraging slow observation. In some caves, bioluminescent organisms appear near entrances or in specific humid zones. Their light is faint, greenish or bluish, never harsh. This natural glow feels almost intimate, not enough to illuminate space, but enough to remind you that life persists even in darkness. Importantly, cave darkness does not change quickly. On the surface, light shifts constantly. Clouds pass, shadows move, sun angles change. Underground, darkness is consistent. Light appears only when introduced. This consistency creates a sense of timelessness. Without visual cues to mark passing hours, the mind releases its grip on schedules. There is no sunset to anticipate, no sunrise to prepare for. Only the present moment exists. This is why caves often feel longer than they are, yet never rushed. You move when you choose, you stop when you wish. There is no external pressure to continue. In this way, caves gently train patience. They demonstrate that darkness does not need to be filled, that stillness does not require explanation, that awareness can exist without constant input. As you move deeper, light becomes a companion rather than a background condition. It is something you carry, guide, and protect. And eventually, when you turn back toward the entrance, light returns gradually. The transition is noticeable. Shadows soften, edges reappear. The outside world begins to announce itself again. But something has shifted. The eyes are more sensitive. The mind is quieter. The body feels grounded. The cave has not altered the world. It has altered perception. And this quiet recalibration prepares us for the next layer of understanding. Because beyond light and darkness, caves also shape how life adapts, survives, and evolves in environments where vision no longer leads. Light is the first thing we lose when entering a cave, not all at once, but gradually. At the entrance, daylight still reaches the stone. Shadows are soft, familiar. The outside world feels close enough to return to without thought. Birds may still be heard, wind may still touch the skin, but with each step inward, light thins. It becomes directional, fragile, intentional. In caves, light does not exist by default. It must be brought, reflected, or discovered in rare natural openings. This simple fact reshapes the entire experience of space. Darkness in caves is not merely the absence of light. It is a condition, stable, ancient, and complete. Beyond the twilight zone near the entrance, caves enter what scientists call aphotic environments, spaces where sunlight has not reached for thousands, sometimes millions of years. This darkness is absolute. If all artificial light is turned off, vision disappears entirely. Not dim vision, not shadowy outlines, nothing. The brain receives no visual information at all. This level of darkness is rare on the surface of the earth. Even on moonless nights, starlight provides reference. In caves there is none. And yet this darkness is not inherently frightening. For many it becomes deeply calming. The reason lies in how the human nervous system responds to reduced sensory input. Vision is our dominant sense. When it is removed, the brain reallocates attention. Hearing becomes more sensitive. Touch becomes more precise. Breathing often slows without conscious effort. Time perception shifts. Minutes feel longer, but not heavier. Thoughts stretch and soften. There is less urgency to interpret or react. In this way, caves create a unique psychological state, one where awareness is present, but pressure is absent. Light, when introduced into this darkness, takes on new meaning. A single beam from a headlamp becomes a focal point. It does not flood the environment. It reveals it selectively. Only what is illuminated exists in the moment. This selective visibility encourages presence. You are not distracted by distant objects or wide horizons. You are with what is immediately before you. A curve of rock, a glistening mineral surface, a drop of water trembling at the tip of a stalactite. In large chambers, light behaves differently. Beams travel farther, but lose intensity. Shadows stretch and overlap. The edges of space dissolve into darkness, creating the impression that the chamber continues far beyond what can be seen. This ambiguity invites imagination, but does not demand it. The cave does not ask to be understood fully. It allows partial knowing. Historically, humans have associated darkness with danger, predators, uncertainty, loss of control. But cave darkness lacks these signals. There is no wind to suggest movement, no sudden changes in temperature, no unpredictable sounds. The environment is remarkably stable. This stability counteracts fear. Once the initial unfamiliarity fades, many people report a sense of comfort in cave darkness. The world feels contained, protected, removed from external demands. This may explain why caves have long been associated with reflection, ritual, and retreat across cultures. In prehistoric times, caves were places of art, burial, and storytelling. The darkness was not avoided, it was sought. Torchlight flickering on cave walls would have created moving shadows, animating rock formations and paintings alike. The environment itself became part of the experience. Even today, Modern cave explorers describe moments when they turn off their lights intentionally, choosing to sit in complete darkness for extended periods. In these moments, the absence of vision does not feel like loss. It feels like rest. The mind no longer scans. The eyes no longer search. There is nothing to process visually, and so the brain quiets its constant commentary. This effect is measurable. Studies on sensory deprivation show that controlled reduction of stimuli can lower stress levels, slow heart rate, and induce meditative brainwave patterns. Caves offer this naturally. Sound becomes more meaningful in the dark. Drips echo softly. Distant water murmurs like slow breathing. Footsteps sound deliberate, grounding the body in space. Each sound has a clear source and a clear end. There is no noise pollution underground. Silence here is not empty. It is structured. Light also reveals time in caves in subtle ways. Mineral surfaces reflect differently depending on moisture. Some glisten briefly, then fade as water evaporates. Others remain matte, absorbing light rather than returning it. These textures guide the eye gently, encouraging slow observation. In some caves, bioluminescent organisms appear near entrances or in specific humid zones. Their light is faint, greenish or bluish, never harsh. This natural glow feels almost intimate, not enough to illuminate space, but enough to remind you that life persists even in darkness. Importantly, cave darkness does not change quickly. On the surface, light shifts constantly. Clouds pass, shadows move, sun angles change. Underground, darkness is consistent. Light appears only when introduced. This consistency creates a sense of timelessness. Without visual cues to mark passing hours, the mind releases its grip on schedules. There is no sunset to anticipate, no sunrise to prepare for. Only the present moment exists. This is why caves often feel longer than they are, yet never rushed. You move when you choose. You stop when you wish. There is no external pressure to continue. In this way, caves gently train patience. They demonstrate that darkness does not need to be filled, that stillness does not require explanation, that awareness can exist without constant input. As you move deeper, light becomes a companion rather than a background condition. It is something you carry, guide, and protect. And eventually, when you turn back toward the entrance, light returns gradually. The transition is noticeable. Shadows soften. Edges reappear. The outside world begins to announce itself again. But something has shifted. The eyes are more sensitive. The mind is quieter. The body feels grounded. The cave has not altered the world. It has altered perception, and this quiet recalibration prepares us for the next layer of understanding. Because beyond light and darkness, caves also shape how life adapts, survives, and evolves in environments where vision no longer leads. At first glance, caves appear empty. Stone, darkness, water. And yet, life is present, quiet, precise, and remarkably adapted. Cave ecosystems are not rich in the way forests or reefs are. They are not crowded or colorful. They do not overflow with movement. Instead, they are defined by efficiency. Every organism that lives in a cave does so under strict conditions: little or no light, stable temperatures, limited food, and slow energy cycles. These constraints shape life in profound ways. Scientists classify cave-associated organisms into three main groups. Trogloxines are visitors. They use caves for shelter but must return to the surface to feed. Bats are the most famous example. They roost in caves, benefiting from stable temperatures and protection, but forage outside each night. Troglophiles can live both inside and outside caves. They are flexible, capable of surviving in low-light environments without being fully dependent on them. Some insects, spiders, and amphibians fall into this category. And then there are troglobites, true cave dwellers. These organisms spend their entire lives underground. Many have never experienced daylight, and their bodies reflect this long evolutionary separation from the surface world. One of the most striking features of troglobites is the loss of eyes. In complete darkness, vision provides no advantage. Maintaining eyes requires energy, and in caves energy is scarce. Over generations, eyes shrink, become non-functional, or disappear entirely. In their place, other senses intensify. Antennae grow longer. Sensory hairs become more numerous. Chemical receptors sharpen, allowing organisms to detect minute changes in water or air. Some cave fish navigate entirely through pressure waves and subtle currents, sensing obstacles without ever seeing them. Pigmentation is another trait often lost. Without sunlight, camouflage and coloration are unnecessary. Many cave creatures are pale, translucent, or white. Their appearance reflects not weakness, but adaptation, a life streamlined for darkness. Movement, too, is different underground. Cave animals tend to move slowly and deliberately. Sudden bursts of energy are rare. Food arrives unpredictably, washed in by water, carried by bats, or drifting from the surface. As a result, cave organisms have evolved low metabolic rates. They can survive long periods without eating. Some cave salamanders and crustaceans can go months between meals. This slow pace extends lifespan. Many cave species live significantly longer than their surface relatives. Without predators, seasonal stress, or environmental fluctuations, their lives unfold gradually. Time moves differently underground. Cave ecosystems are often fueled indirectly. Bat guano, for example, is a major source of nutrients in many caves. Entire communities of insects, fungi, and microorganisms depend on it. In some caves, the presence of bats determines whether life can exist at all. Water plays an equally important role. Dripping water carries minerals, organic particles, and microorganisms from the surface. Pools and streams become lifelines, connecting isolated chambers into subtle networks. In some deep caves, bacteria form the foundation of the ecosystem. These microbes do not rely on sunlight. Instead, they use chemical energy from minerals in the rock, a process known as chemosynthesis. This type of life challenges our assumptions about where living systems can exist. It suggests that life does not require light, only stability, energy sources, and time. The silence of caves amplifies awareness of this hidden activity. You may not see movement, but it is there. Microorganisms grow, water flows, nutrients circulate, Life continues quietly. One of the most fascinating aspects of cave life is convergence. Cave species around the world, isolated by continents and oceans, often evolve similar traits. Blindness, pale bodies, elongated appendages appear again and again. This pattern reveals how strongly the cave environment shapes biology. Different lineages, facing the same conditions, arrive at similar solutions. Caves are laboratories of evolution, operating on long timescales without interruption. They preserve ancient genetic pathways. Some cave species are living relics, closely resembling organisms that existed millions of years ago on the surface. In this sense, caves are not just habitats, they are archives. Human presence in caves must be careful. Because cave ecosystems are so finely balanced, small disturbances can have lasting effects. A single footprint can alter microbial growth. Changes in airflow or humidity can disrupt delicate systems. This fragility reinforces a sense of respect. Caves do not resist intrusion aggressively. They simply respond slowly and sometimes irreversibly. For the observer, this awareness deepens calm rather than fear. You are not entering a hostile environment. You are entering one that has no margin for excess, and that, paradoxically, makes it feel honest. Life underground teaches restraint. It shows how much can exist without abundance, how complexity can arise from limitation, how silence can support continuity. As you learn about these creatures, unseen, unhurried, enduring, it becomes clear that caves are not empty spaces. They are spaces of quiet persistence. And this persistence prepares us to understand the cave not just as a place of stone and darkness, but as part of a larger system, one that connects water, rock, and life across vast scales of time. That connection will guide us deeper still. Water is the true architect of caves. Stone may appear solid and unchanging, but it is water, patient, persistent, and precise, that quietly reshapes the underground world. Long before a cave becomes a space of darkness and silence, it begins as a conversation between rock and water. Rain falls on the surface, often unnoticed. It seeps into soil, passes through vegetation, and slowly absorbs carbon dioxide from the air and organic matter. This creates a weak carbonic acid, gentle but effective over time. When this water reaches limestone or other soluble rocks, the process begins. Drop by drop, year by year, water dissolves mineral bonds. Microscopic fractures widen. Tiny channels form. What was once solid becomes permeable. Caves are not carved in a moment. They are negotiated into existence. Underground rivers play a central role in this transformation. Unlike surface rivers, they are hidden from view, flowing through darkness with no horizon, no sky, and no visible destination. Yet their movement is continuous. These rivers follow gravity, pressure, and geological weaknesses. They may run quietly beneath valleys, mountains, or entire cities, shaping landscapes from below. In karst regions, areas dominated by limestone, underground drainage systems can be vast. Water disappears from the surface and re-emerges kilometers away, sometimes after years or even centuries underground. To the surface observer, the land appears calm and stable. Beneath it, Water is constantly rearranging space. Cave rivers are not always gentle streams. During periods of heavy rain or snowmelt, they can swell dramatically. Passages that remain dry for decades may suddenly flood, reminding us that caves are not static voids, but dynamic systems. This variability shapes the cave itself. Smooth, rounded walls often indicate prolonged water flow. Scalloped rock patterns reveal the direction and speed of ancient currents. Vertical shafts speak of plunging water, while wide horizontal tunnels suggest long-standing rivers at stable levels. By reading these forms, geologists reconstruct underground histories. Caves, in this sense, are records written by water. Time behaves differently in these spaces. On the surface, rivers change course, flood, and erode visibly. Underground, the same processes occur more slowly and with less interruption. Temperatures remain stable. Seasonal variation is minimal. Flow patterns persist. This stability allows caves to preserve features that would erode quickly above ground. Some underground rivers still follow paths established millions of years ago, when climates, continents, and ecosystems were entirely different. In certain caves, fossilized riverbeds sit high above current water levels, marking former stages of erosion. As landscapes uplifted and surface rivers cut deeper, underground systems adjusted gradually. The cave remembers each phase. Water also connects caves to broader hydrological systems. What enters a cave does not vanish. It moves onward, feeding springs, rivers, wetlands, and aquifers. Many communities rely unknowingly on water that has traveled through caves, filtered by rock and time. This filtration is often highly effective. As water passes through layers of stone, impurities are reduced, temperatures stabilize, and chemical composition changes. Springs emerging from cave systems often provide exceptionally clear and mineral-balanced water. But this purity is fragile. Because cave systems are directly connected to surface water, pollution introduced above ground can travel rapidly underground. Agricultural runoff, industrial waste, or urban contamination may bypass natural filtration and reach aquifers intact. This vulnerability reinforces the idea that caves are not isolated worlds. They are integrated parts of the surface environment, hidden but deeply connected. Inside the cave, water creates sound. Dripping water marks time. A steady drop echoes through chambers, forming rhythms that can persist for centuries. Flowing streams generate low, continuous tones that soften the silence. In larger systems, underground rivers can roar, unseen but powerful, their presence felt more than heard. These sounds contribute to the cave's atmosphere. They provide orientation, scale, and reassurance. Even in complete darkness, water announces itself. Life follows these flows. Many cave organisms depend on water for movement, feeding, and reproduction. Aquatic invertebrates drift with currents. Microorganisms colonize wet surfaces. Nutrients arrive dissolved, transported invisibly from the surface. In some caves, water is the only active element. Rock remains still, air barely moves, but water continues, circulating energy through an otherwise quiet system. Human exploration of cave rivers has always required caution. Flooding can occur without warning. Narrow passages may become traps. Changes in water chemistry or temperature can indicate deeper connections to unknown systems. Yet humans are drawn to these rivers, perhaps because they represent continuity, a reminder that even in darkness, movement persists. Perhaps because they mirror something internal, a slow current beneath awareness, carrying thought, memory, and attention. Standing beside an underground river, one feels both small and held. The cave does not rush you. The water does not demand urgency. Everything unfolds at a pace older than human time. This calm persistence prepares us for what lies ahead, because where water flows long enough, it does more than carve space. It creates chambers large enough to hold air, sound, and eventually, human presence. And it is within these water-shaped spaces that some of the most extraordinary underground forms emerge. Forms that appear almost intentional, forms that rise, drip, and grow, guided by gravity, chemistry, and patience. Those formations are waiting just ahead. In most landscapes, stone appears finished. Mountains rise, cliffs stand, rocks fracture and fall, but they rarely seem to grow. In caves, however, the opposite is true. Here, stone is not only shaped by time, it is actively built by it. This quiet construction happens drop by drop. As water moves slowly through cave ceilings, it carries dissolved minerals, most often calcium carbonate. When a drop reaches open air inside the cave, carbon dioxide escapes, and a tiny amount of mineral is left behind. The process is almost imperceptible. One drop deposits a microscopic ring of stone, another reinforces it. Over hundreds of years, these rings extend downward, forming a slender structure that appears to hang from the ceiling. This is a stalactite. The word comes from the Greek stalaktos, meaning dripping. It is an exact description. Without dripping water, stalactites do not exist. Below them, where drops fall and strike the cave floor, another process begins. Each drop splashes, releasing carbon dioxide and leaving behind a trace of mineral. Over time, this builds upward. This is a stalagmite. Unlike stalactites, which grow suspended, stalagmites rise from the ground, grounded, patient, and often broader in form. When these two structures grow long enough to meet, they form a column, a continuous bridge of stone between ceiling and floor. Columns are among the most visually striking features in caves, not because they appear dramatic, but because they represent continuity. Nothing has interrupted their growth for thousands of years. The speed of this construction is astonishingly slow. On average, stalactites and stalagmites grow between 1 millimeter and 1 centimeter per century, depending on water flow, mineral concentration, temperature, and cave ventilation. Some grow even more slowly. This means that a formation just 1 meter tall may represent over 10,000 years of uninterrupted conditions. No collapse, no flooding strong enough to break it, no drying that stopped the flow. Each formation is a record of environmental stability. These structures vary widely in shape. Some stalactites are thin and hollow, called soda straws, allowing water to flow directly through their center. Others are thick and ridged, shaped by irregular dripping or airflow. Stalagmites may be sharp and conical, broad and rounded, or terraced like steps. Their form depends on where the water falls, how it spreads, and how quickly minerals accumulate. Color adds another layer of information. Pure calcium carbonate forms white or translucent structures. Iron introduces reds and oranges. Copper creates blues and greens. Organic material can darken surfaces, producing browns and grays. These colors are not decorative. They are chemical signatures. By analyzing them, scientists can reconstruct past climates, rainfall patterns, vegetation cover, even atmospheric composition. In this way, cave formations act as natural climate archives, preserving data far beyond the reach of written history. Some of the most precise climate records on Earth come from stalagmites. They grow steadily, layer by layer, recording subtle changes in water chemistry. Unlike surface sediments, they are protected from erosion, wind, and biological disturbance. Time here is layered, not erased. The visual impact of these formations often creates a sense of wonder, but their deeper significance lies in what they reveal about patience. Nothing about them is rushed. They do not respond to seasons or urgency. They require consistent conditions, steady water, and long spans of uninterrupted calm. In caves where conditions change, where floods surge, ceilings collapse, or airflow shifts, formations break, tilt, or stop growing altogether. Broken stalactites tell stories of past earthquakes or collapses. Tilted stalagmites may mark ground movement. A sudden change in growth layers can indicate a shift in climate thousands of years ago. Every irregularity has meaning. In illuminated caves, human-installed lighting sometimes causes algae to grow on formations, a phenomenon known as lampenflora. This biological intrusion reminds us how delicate these systems are. What takes thousands of years to form can be altered in decades. For this reason, many caves are now carefully managed. Paths are elevated, airflow is monitored, lighting is minimized. Touching formations is prohibited because even the oils from human skin can halt growth permanently. Once stopped, growth may never resume. Despite their fragility, these structures endure precisely because caves are stable environments. Temperature remains nearly constant year-round. Humidity stays high. Air movement is minimal. These conditions allow mineral deposition to continue uninterrupted. In this sense, caves function like time capsules. They preserve not only stone, but processes. Standing in a chamber filled with stalactites and stalagmites, one is surrounded by thousands of years of slow motion. Nothing here is symbolic by intention, and yet everything feels meaningful. These formations do not demand attention. They simply exist. Their presence invites a different kind of observation, slower, quieter, more attentive. They prepare the mind for stillness, and this stillness leads us naturally toward another dimension of cave life, one that does not build stone, but lives among it. Because where water slows, where light disappears, and where time stretches, life adapts in extraordinary ways. In the darkness beyond these formations, creatures exist that have never known day or night. They are waiting quietly in the next chapter. When we imagine life, we often imagine light, sunrise and sunset, day and night, shadows moving across landscapes. Nearly all life on the surface of the earth is shaped by this daily rhythm. Plants grow toward light. Animals hunt, rest, migrate, and reproduce according to cycles of brightness and darkness. But deep inside caves, this rhythm disappears. Here, there is no dawn, no dusk, no seasons marked by the sun. Darkness is not an event. It is a permanent condition. And yet life exists, not as an accident, not as a temporary visitor, but as a deeply adapted, highly specialized presence that has learned to survive and even thrive without light. These organisms are known as troglobites, creatures that spend their entire lives in caves and cannot survive outside them. They are different from animals that occasionally enter caves for shelter. Troglobites are fully committed to darkness. Their bodies reflect this commitment. Eyes, which are costly to maintain, are often reduced or entirely absent. In many cave species, eyes never develop at all. In others, they remain as vestigial structures, hidden beneath skin or bone. Pigmentation also fades. Without sunlight, color provides no advantage. Over generations, pigments disappear, leaving bodies pale, translucent, or ghostly white. Blood vessels may be visible beneath the skin. Organs can sometimes be seen faintly through the body wall. What is lost, however, is replaced. Other senses become remarkably refined. Touch becomes primary. Antennae lengthen, sensory hairs multiply. Vibrations in air and water are detected with extraordinary sensitivity. Chemical cues, traces of food, mates, or danger, are read with precision that surface animals rarely require. In caves, information travels quietly. One of the most well-known examples is the cavefish. Found in caves around the world, especially in regions like Mexico, Southeast Asia, and the Balkans, cavefish often lack eyes entirely. Their skulls may show empty eye sockets, while the surrounding sensory structures are enlarged. They navigate by detecting subtle changes in water pressure and movement. Insects, crustaceans, spiders, millipedes, and worms also populate cave systems. Many species exist nowhere else on Earth, restricted to a single cave or even a single chamber. These are some of the most geographically limited species known to science. Because caves are isolated, evolution inside them proceeds independently. Populations become genetically distinct over time, even when separated by only a few kilometers of rock. This isolation makes cave ecosystems fragile. A small change in water quality, temperature, or airflow can threaten entire species. Many cave organisms have extremely slow metabolisms and long lifespans. Some reproduce infrequently and in small numbers. They are not built for rapid change. Food in particular is scarce. Without sunlight, there is no photosynthesis. No plants grow in deep cave zones. All energy must come from the outside world, washed in by water, carried by air, or delivered by animals that move between surface and cave. Fallen leaves, wood fragments, pollen, and organic debris become precious resources. Bat guano deposited by colonies roosting in caves is one of the richest energy sources available. Around guano piles, entire ecosystems form. Bacteria and fungi break down the material. Insects feed on microbes. Predators feed on insects. Each layer depends on the one below it. In some caves, chemosynthetic bacteria provide another pathway for life. These organisms use chemical energy from sulfur, methane, or other compounds rather than sunlight. Similar processes occur near deep-sea hydrothermal vents. In these cases, life is powered by the chemistry of the Earth itself. This makes caves important not only ecologically, but scientifically. They offer models for understanding how life might exist on other planets or moons, places without sunlight, but with subsurface water and chemical energy. Europa, Enceladus, Mars. Caves quietly expand our definition of habitability. The behavior of cave animals also reflects their environment. Many move slowly, conserving energy. Aggression is rare, territoriality is minimal. When food appears, it is used efficiently with little waste. Some species can survive months without eating. Reproduction is carefully timed and energy efficient. Eggs may be fewer but larger. Development is slow. Growth continues over long periods. Time in caves is stretched. Even sound behaves differently. Without wind, traffic, or surface noise, caves are acoustically still. Sounds travel clearly but softly. Footsteps echo gently. Water drops become rhythmic markers of presence. For cave animals, vibration often replaces vision entirely. Despite their adaptations, many cave species remain poorly studied. New species are still being discovered even in well-explored regions. Each discovery reveals a unique solution to the problem of living without light. These creatures challenge our assumptions. They show that life does not require abundance. It does not require color, speed, or brightness. It requires stability, patience, and the ability to sense the world in different ways. For the human mind, this realization can be quietly transformative. Caves ask us to slow down, to observe without expecting spectacle, to listen instead of looking, to accept that much of life happens beyond our usual focus. The presence of life in total darkness does not feel dramatic. It feels intimate, and this intimacy prepares us for another dimension of caves, not biological but human, because long before modern science entered these spaces, humans were already here, listening, marking, leaving traces. The next chapter follows those traces into the deep relationship between caves and the human imagination. Long before caves were studied as geological formations, they were experienced as places of meaning. For early humans, caves were not abstract spaces. They were immediate physical environments, encountered through cold air, darkness, stone walls, and echoing sound. They offered protection from wind, rain, predators, and extreme temperatures. In many regions, caves were among the first stable shelters available to human groups. But shelter was only the beginning. Over time, caves became something more than protection. They became places where humans stopped, gathered, observed, and marked their presence. And from these actions, meaning slowly emerged. Archaeological evidence shows that humans have used caves for hundreds of thousands of years. Stone tools, hearths, animal bones, and human remains have been found deep inside cave systems across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. These were not always casual occupations. Some caves show repeated use over generations, suggesting familiarity, memory, and tradition. Certain chambers were chosen again and again, not necessarily the most practical ones, but the most symbolically charged. One of the clearest examples of this symbolic relationship is cave art. Paintings and engravings found in caves like Lascaux Chauvet, Altamira, and many others, reveal a striking pattern. Humans deliberately ventured far into dark, difficult-to-reach chambers to create images. These were not casual sketches near cave entrances. They were made deep inside, where light does not naturally reach. Artists carried torches or stone lamps fueled by animal fat. They worked by flickering light, shadows moving across uneven walls. The cave itself became part of the artwork. Natural contours of rock were used to suggest movement, depth, and form. Animals appear frequently: bison, horses, deer, lions, mammoths. Human figures are rare and often abstract. The purpose of this art is still debated. Some theories suggest ritual or spiritual meaning. Others propose storytelling, teaching, or social bonding. Some interpret the caves as early ceremonial spaces, places where communities gathered to mark events, seasons, or beliefs. What is clear is that these images were not meant to be seen casually. They required effort, intention, and presence. This effort suggests that caves were already being perceived as liminal spaces, places between worlds, neither fully outside nor fully inside, neither day nor night, neither surface nor depth. Across cultures, this perception repeats. In many mythologies, caves are entrances to the underworld, realms of spirits, or places of transformation. Heroes descend into caves to face trials, gain knowledge, or emerge changed. Deities are born, hidden, or revealed in subterranean spaces. In ancient Greek thought, caves were associated with prophecy and initiation. The famous allegory of the cave, described by Plato, uses the cave as a metaphor for perception, ignorance, and awakening. In Hindu traditions, caves have long been used as places of meditation and retreat. In Buddhist cultures, cave temples were carved into cliffs, creating spaces designed for contemplation and ritual. In indigenous traditions across the world, caves are often seen as places of origin, where ancestors emerged, or where the earth itself gave birth to life. Despite cultural differences, a common pattern appears. Caves are not treated as neutral spaces. They are treated as places where ordinary rules are softened, where silence matters, where attention shifts inward, where time feels altered. Even the physical experience of entering a cave contributes to this perception. Light fades gradually, sound changes, temperature stabilizes, the outside world becomes distant, the body adjusts its pace, breathing slows, movement becomes careful and deliberate. These sensory changes encourage introspection. For humans, caves naturally invite stillness. This is one reason caves have often been associated with rites of passage. Entering a cave, spending time in darkness, and returning to the surface mirrors symbolic death and rebirth, separation and return, descent and ascent. Psychologically, this structure is powerful. Modern psychology recognizes similar patterns. Enclosed, quiet environments can induce altered states of awareness. Reduced sensory input allows internal imagery, memory, and emotion to surface more easily. In this sense, caves function as natural chambers of attention. They do not overwhelm the senses. They focus them. Even today, people often describe caves using emotional language. Words like awe, calm, unease, reverence, and wonder appear frequently in personal accounts. This response is not accidental. The human nervous system is highly responsive to enclosed spaces with low light and stable conditions. These environments reduce external stimuli and encourage parasympathetic activity, the state associated with rest, digestion, and calm awareness. Caves gently guide the body toward stillness. This may help explain why, throughout history, humans have continued to return to caves, even after building houses, temples, and cities. Caves remain compelling. They offer something that constructed spaces rarely achieve with the same quiet authority, a sense of being inside the earth itself. Stone walls feel permanent. Time feels deep. Human presence feels temporary but acknowledged. And in this contrast, between human fragility and geological endurance, meaning naturally arises. Caves remind us that we are visitors, that others came before us, that others will come after. This awareness does not feel threatening, it feels grounding. As civilizations grew more complex, caves did not disappear from human culture. They became sites of pilgrimage, study, refuge, and imagination. Hermits lived in caves, monks carved cells into rock, travelers recorded caves as places of marvel. Even in modern storytelling, caves remain powerful symbols of mystery, hidden knowledge, transformation, and inner journeys. Despite technological progress, the symbolic role of caves remains intact. They continue to represent thresholds, and thresholds invite pause. As we move forward, this symbolic dimension begins to overlap with something more immediate and sensory again. The present-day human experience of caves, not as myth, but as lived environments. Because beyond art and ritual, caves are still entered today, carefully, quietly, with curiosity. The next chapter follows this living relationship, how modern humans explore, study, and protect caves, and what it means to step into these ancient spaces with contemporary awareness. To enter a cave is to enter a different sensory order. Even before the eyes adjust to darkness, the body notices the change. Air feels cooler and heavier. Sounds behave differently, echoing softly or disappearing altogether. The ground underfoot becomes uneven, sometimes damp, sometimes smooth with centuries of mineral deposition. Caves immediately alter perception. On the surface, humans rely heavily on sight. In caves, sight slowly loses its dominance. Vision narrows to the range of artificial light, a lantern, a headlamp, a flame. Beyond that circle, darkness remains complete and undisturbed. This shift has a profound effect on awareness. When visual input is reduced, other senses quietly step forward. Hearing becomes more attentive. Touch becomes deliberate. Even balance and spatial orientation become conscious acts. The cave invites slowness. Movement inside a cave is rarely rushed. Each step is chosen. Each hand placement matters. This careful pacing naturally calms the nervous system, encouraging a state of alert relaxation, awake but unhurried. Silence plays a central role in this experience. Cave silence is not absolute silence. It is a different kind of quiet, one shaped by stone. Dripping water, distant echoes, the soft sound of breath or footsteps become noticeable events. In many caves, Even these sounds fade after a while, leaving long stretches of near stillness. This silence can feel unfamiliar at first. Modern life rarely offers such acoustic emptiness, but once accepted, it becomes grounding rather than unsettling. The mind adjusts, thoughts slow, attention settles inward, time begins to stretch. Many cave explorers report that hours underground feel shorter or longer than expected, depending on the individual. This distortion of time perception is common in environments with limited sensory change. Without sunlight, shadows, or weather, the body's usual time markers disappear. Instead, time becomes experiential rather than measured. Darkness deepens this effect. Cave darkness is complete. It is not the dimness of night or the shadow of a forest. It is the absence of light altogether. When artificial light is turned off, darkness is immediate and total. This darkness can feel intimidating at first, but it also offers something rare: visual rest. The eyes no longer scan endlessly. They no longer process movement, color, or distance. Vision pauses. For many people, this creates a surprising sense of relief. In darkness, there is nothing to watch, nothing to interpret. The world simplifies. This simplicity allows awareness to shift inward, toward breath, heartbeat, and bodily presence. In this way, caves naturally encourage mindfulness, not through instruction, but through environment. The body responds to caves in predictable physiological ways. Heart rate often slows, breathing becomes deeper and more regular, muscle tension decreases as movement becomes careful and economical. Researchers studying human responses to caves have noted these calming effects, particularly during extended time underground. This does not mean caves are without challenge. They demand attention. They reward respect. But within that balance lies their unique sensory power. Temperature is another defining feature. Most caves maintain a stable temperature year-round, often close to the average annual temperature of the region. This constancy contrasts sharply with surface environments, where temperature fluctuates daily and seasonally. Inside a cave, the body no longer needs to adapt continuously. The environment feels steady. This thermal stability contributes to the sensation of safety and containment, as if the cave itself is holding the space in equilibrium. Light inside caves creates its own atmosphere. Artificial light reveals textures slowly. Mineral formations catch light differently depending on angle and moisture. Shadows stretch and contract with movement, giving the cave a quiet sense of motion even when still. This interplay between light and darkness makes caves feel alive without being active. They do not demand attention. They invite observation. Human presence inside caves has always been shaped by this sensory environment. Early humans learned quickly how to move, rest, and work underground. They adapted their behavior to sound, light, and space. Fire was used carefully. Tools were chosen for reliability rather than speed. This same approach is followed by modern cave explorers. Speleologists, scientists, and recreational cavers move slowly and deliberately. Communication is quiet. Equipment is minimal but precise. Attention is shared between the individual and the group. Caves encourage cooperation. In many cave systems, success depends on trust. trusting the environment, the equipment, and one another. This shared vulnerability often creates strong bonds among those who explore together. At the same time, caves also allow for solitude. Some chambers are so vast and quiet that a single person can feel completely alone, not isolated, but singular. In these moments, the sense of scale becomes deeply personal. A small human presence against ancient stone creates perspective. The cave does not respond, it does not react, it simply exists. This neutrality is comforting. Unlike surface environments filled with signals, demands, and movement, caves remain indifferent. They do not judge, they do not hurry, they wait. This waiting quality is part of their psychological impact. Caves feel patient. They allow humans to slow down without consequence. Modern visitors often describe leaving caves with a heightened sense of calm, clarity, or groundedness. The experience lingers, not as excitement but as quiet presence. This effect is not accidental. It arises from a convergence of factors: darkness, silence, stable temperature, reduced sensory input, careful movement, and deep time awareness. Together, these elements create an environment that gently resets attention. In a world saturated with information and stimulation, caves offer the opposite. They offer absence. And in that absence, awareness expands. As humans continue to explore caves, study them and protect them, this sensory dimension remains one of their most enduring qualities. Caves are not just geological structures or archaeological sites. They are experiential landscapes, places where perception shifts, places where the body listens, places where presence becomes natural rather than forced. In the next chapter, we will move from sensory experience to responsibility, exploring how humans interact with caves today through conservation, science, and protection, and why preserving these quiet environments has become increasingly important. By the time we reach the deeper understanding of caves, one truth becomes clear. Caves may feel eternal, but they are not invulnerable. They endure for millions of years, shaped by water, gravity, chemistry, and time itself. Yet a single careless moment can alter them permanently. A footprint, a broken formation, a shift in airflow, or an introduced contaminant can leave marks that last longer than any human lifetime. Caves are ancient, but they are also delicate. This fragility is not immediately obvious. Stone feels solid, walls feel immovable, ceilings arch overhead with a sense of permanence. But the processes that create and sustain caves operate on fine balances. A stalactite that took thousands of years to grow can be broken in seconds. A cave ecosystem that evolved in isolation can be disrupted by a brief exposure to light, heat, or foreign organisms. Understanding this contrast between age and vulnerability is central to how humans now approach caves. For much of history, caves were used without awareness of their limits. They were mined, altered, widened, and sometimes destroyed in the pursuit of minerals, shelter, or curiosity. In many regions, entire cave systems were lost before their significance was understood. Only in recent centuries did a shift begin. As geology, biology, and archaeology developed, caves started to be recognized not just as empty spaces, but as complex environments, archives of Earth's history and living systems in their own right. Today, cave conservation is a multidisciplinary effort. Geologists study how caves form and evolve. Biologists document species found nowhere else on Earth. Archaeologists protect ancient art and evidence of early human presence. Hydrologists monitor how cave systems interact with surface water and aquifers. Together, these fields reveal that caves are deeply connected to the world above. Water that enters a cave often originates far away, falling as rain or snow before traveling through soil and rock. What happens on the surface, pollution, land use, construction, directly affects subterranean environments. In this way, caves act as mirrors. They reflect the health of the landscapes above them. Protecting caves therefore requires protecting entire ecosystems, not just the spaces underground. One of the greatest challenges in cave conservation is invisibility. Because caves are hidden, their degradation often goes unnoticed. Damage can occur long before anyone realizes it. This makes prevention far more important than restoration. Once a cave formation is broken, it cannot be repaired. Once a species is lost, it cannot be replaced. Conservation efforts focus on minimizing impact. Access is often limited. Paths are carefully designed. Lighting is controlled to prevent algae growth. In some caves, human entry is restricted entirely to preserve fragile conditions. These measures are not meant to exclude but to protect. They reflect a growing understanding that caves are not resources to be consumed, but environments to be respected. Education plays a crucial role here. When people understand how caves function, how slowly they change, how interconnected they are, how easily they can be damaged, behavior naturally shifts. Curiosity becomes care. Modern caving culture emphasizes responsibility. Leave no trace, move gently, touch nothing unnecessarily, observe more than you interact. This mindset transforms exploration into stewardship. Scientific exploration continues to reveal new discoveries. Even today, new cave systems are being mapped. New species are being identified. New insights into climate history are being extracted from mineral layers and sediment deposits. Caves contain records of past temperatures, rainfall patterns, volcanic events, and even atmospheric composition. These records help scientists understand how Earth has changed and how it may change again. In an era of climate uncertainty, this information is invaluable. Caves are timekeepers. They remind us that the planet operates on scales far beyond human schedules, yet responds quickly to human actions. This duality makes caves powerful teachers. They teach patience, they teach humility, they teach restraint. For the individual listener, caves also offer something quieter. They invite reflection on our place within larger systems. Standing in a vast chamber, dwarfed by stone shaped long before humanity existed, it becomes difficult to maintain a sense of urgency or ego. Perspective naturally shifts, concerns soften, attention widens. This is perhaps why caves have held symbolic meaning across cultures as places of initiation, refuge, transformation, and insight. Even without symbolism, their impact is felt. Caves slow us down. They ask us to listen, They remind us that not everything must be illuminated to be understood. As we look toward the future, the role of caves will likely grow rather than diminish. As surface environments become more studied, more altered, more crowded, subterranean spaces remain among the last relatively untouched realms. Their protection will depend on continued awareness, research, and respect. Each generation inherits these spaces. What we choose to do with them matters, and so as this journey through caves comes to a close, we return gently to the surface, carrying with us not excitement, but steadiness. The knowledge that beneath our feet lies a world shaped by patience, a world that endures through balance, a world that does not ask for attention, only care. As you rest now, you might imagine the quiet below, chambers resting in darkness, water moving slowly through stone, time unfolding without urgency. And just as caves remain undisturbed through long stretches of silence, you too can allow yourself to rest, unhurried, supported, and at ease. As our journey through caves slowly comes to rest, there is no need to carry every detail with you. The shapes, the depths, the quiet chambers, the slow movement of water through stone, they can remain here, gently settling into the background of your thoughts. Caves do not rush. They form patiently, layer by layer, drop by drop, allowing time to do its quiet work. And in much the same way, you are allowed to rest now, without effort, without expectation. You've traveled through underground rivers and ancient chambers, through darkness that holds life rather than fear, through spaces shaped by millions of years of stillness. If any image remains with you, a distant glow, a vast chamber, a quiet echo, you can let it soften, blur, and fade into calm. There is nothing more to follow closely, nothing more to remember. If these quiet journeys bring you comfort, you're gently welcome to like the video, subscribe, or leave a small thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one calm mind at a time. But for now, simply rest. Let your breathing slow. Let your body feel supported. Let your thoughts drift like water through stone. Thank you for exploring with me. Good night.